everyone. From the FoundryCast Studios, high atop Old Smoky, I'm Zach, and this is the GM's Chair. So today I'd like to briefly cover a topic that I'm going to call table rules. Now, I'm not talking about the specific rules, the game system that you want to use for your tabletop game. So I'm not talking about Dungeons & Dragons versus Pathfinder versus World of Darkness. I'm also not talking about house rules, the common term that you use for any tweaks that you make to the game system to make the game kind of suit your needs. Instead, I'm talking about the meta rules that you as a GM need to create to make sure the game flows in the way that you want. As a GM, you have to remember that you are going to set the tone for the way that game is going to unfold. So you need to be upfront about creating expectations, making those expectations consistent, and enforcing them as your game unfolds. Do you want to try and create a relaxed atmosphere at your table so that players can feel free to get up and stand up and sit down, joke around with one another, make non sequiturs, things like that? Do you want to try and have a very serious game where everyone stays in character all the time and you try and boost immersion as much as you can? There's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on the GM. It depends on the person. It depends on the game you're running. It depends on the party, the players who are in the game. It could even depend on which adventure you're running that night, because some might be a little bit more lighthearted than others. But the important thing is to create that consistency up front and make sure that everyone knows what to expect. I think the best thing is to make a short list of these table rules before the game even begins, and sit down with the players and go over those rules, make sure that everyone understands them and everyone's comfortable with them, comfortable with playing your game with those rules in place. And then also, when you reach a point where maybe one of the players is breaking those rules and becoming an issue, you need to address it up front, immediately, in a mature way. Call them out. Speaking from experience, I know as a player, and I know any other players I've ever played with, we would be horrified to know if we were causing problems at the table. Anybody who's becoming a nuisance at the table really probably doesn't know that they're doing it. So you need to call them out right away. Pull them aside, be like, hey, I know you're having fun, but remember this house rule that we set into place. I want to keep to that, just to keep. And like I said, speaking as a player myself, if somebody had that conversation with me, I'd be horrified to know that I was putting their game in jeopardy. I'd immediately change my actions, my behavior, and get right back into where we wanted to be. So don't be afraid to address it right away. The only way it ever really becomes a problem is if you don't address it. If you're too afraid to bring it up and then it festers and becomes an issue, it becomes an expectation, and now your rules are broken every week. So I think that topic is especially important for new GMs, anybody who's looking to get into being a GM. Make sure that you're dedicating enough time when you're planning your game out, not just in terms of learning the rules or plotting out characters and adventures and things like that. Worry about the metagame. Worry about how you want that game to flow and how you want to be as a GM. Set those rules into place. Do you want to ask your players not to have their cell phones at the table? Maybe turn them off, turn them on vibrate, keep them in their pocket. Do you want to ask your players to strictly stay in character, or to be very clear about indicating when they're in versus out of character? Do you want to ask every player to make sure they bring a very clearly written and up-to-date character sheet, or bring a mini to the table, or anything like that? Even something as simple as, are you going to allow food and drink on your table? Do you want to ask your players not to put their drinks up there just in case they get knocked over and it ruins a map or something like that? So I don't think there are any right or wrong answers to any of these questions. It really just depends on you as a GM, but it is important that you make your choices, make them clear, and make sure that everybody understands them and is comfortable. And then, of course, if you've played a game for weeks and weeks and a problem just suddenly arises, don't be afraid to address it with a new rule. Create something, talk everybody through it, establish that rule, and you're good to go. So, what sort of rules do you find helpful to enforce at your gaming table? Let us know in the comments below this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more from the GM's Chair.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and to see more from us, check out our website at thefoundrycast.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for watching.